Attention Guilford County, are you ready for positive change in our schools? Introducing Bill Goebel, a true champion for our students, parents, and teachers. With years of experience and unwavering dedication, Bill Goebel is the leader we need on the school board. As a current member representing District 3, Bill is already making a difference, shaping policies that benefit our community. Vote for Bill Goebel for school board, and let's build a brighter future for Guilford County together. Paid for by the committee to elect Bill Goebel for school board.
Coming up in this episode of Finding Common Ground.
When I first started scouting, there was, again, like I mentioned, 5 of us that started the troop because this was a brand new thing. Girls had never, there was no role models for us to look up to. I always struggled with that. I was really nervous. I was like, well, can we do it? I mean, there's no women for me to really look up to in my role or being an Eagle Scout. And I kind of was like, okay, well, if there's no one there, I get to be that person. And that's how I really...
Wow. Can you say that again? Because that's so powerful for so many people, young boys and young girls, what you just said.
There are 2 sides to every coin.
How do we deal with racial issues when they affect relationships?
Finding common ground on all those issues that we come against.
There's black and there's white.
And I think as Christians, we have to learn how to get together because we're not in heaven.
I've met more interesting people just by God just bringing them in.
Republicans and Democrats.
But a lot of times when it comes to race and it comes to culture and it comes to perception, even as Christians, we don't always understand. We look at it through our lenses.
There's Bill.
I grew up in a suburb of Cleveland called Parma.
Any black people in Parma?
There was not one.
Not one black person,
Not
Bill?
one.
Come
Not
on, Bill.
one.
You got to have one. Token black person? A token?
And there's Odell.
I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, public housing, single mom, divorced single mom of 4 kids. And I came up through segregation and all that kind of stuff.
If a black person drove through the town, the police would stop and escort them out.
Bill and Odell are finding common ground.
A part of what we have to do is listen to each other, find the common ground, and question, not questioning you like you're on a witness stand, but questioning you for a better understanding.
Father God, we come to you today in the precious name of Jesus Christ. God, we thank you for grace and mercy, and we thank you for blessing us to live in this great country that we call the United States of America. I didn't say perfect, God. We just said great. And one of the things that make us great is our motto, in God we trust. So God, we trust in you. We trust in you through the good times and through the not so good times. We trust in you through the valleys and on the mountaintops. God, we just trust in you. So we just ask you to continue to protect us as individuals, our families, and this great country. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Dear Heavenly Father, we lift up the young people of America. They're our future. They're the ones that are going to take over for us and lead our country. Just thank you for the Scouts and providing character development and leadership and teaching our Scouts duty to God, duty to country, service to others, and then take care of yourself. Lord, just thank you for the energy of young people as they learn and explore and come up with new ideas. Amen.
And I just want to thank you both for having me here. I'm really excited to just get started. So I'm ready to jump in when you guys are.
Okay. Selby's ready to jump in. Now, let me explain, folks. It's Selby. There's no H. So,
yes.
Selby.
So, Bill, before you introduce Selby, you and I are not young people?
I am. I don't know about you.
Well, I'm 64 and you're how old?
75.
Okay. Nah. We're not young people. We're nowhere close to young people. So you're absolutely right. Please, Bill, introduce our distinguished guest. And people, please pay attention. This young lady is amazing, just amazing.
Well, I'm so proud to have her on. She's a fellow Eagle Scout, class of 2023. Is that right?
Class of 2021. It was the first one. Yeah.
Okay, the first class. Okay. And my class was 1966. So
wow.
You're old, Goebel.
Yeah, I knew Moses.
Was Moses the Eagle Scout?
You betcha he was.
Okay.
You betcha he was. He could tie some knots.
Okay. I bet.
But I met Selby at her Eagle Award ceremony, which was held at a theater in town.
Yes.
Yep. You don't remember me. I was one of the old guys in the back, but I remember you and your fellow Eagles that were there. I guess you call it the sisterhood.
Yeah, that's what we refer to our troop as. We like to think we're kind of a lighthouse troop of sorts. We want to set an example for other female troops out there, and even, the all male troops. We would just want to be a good example of what scouting is. And so we refer to ourselves as the sisterhood, which makes us all feel like a great big family most of the time.
That's great. And Selby, introduce yourself a little bit, where you're from, your family, where you go to school now, but where you went before. Just do a little background so people understand.
Yeah, so I've always lived in Oak Ridge, North Carolina. I grew up there, same house, and I really love the town. I've been to almost all of the things that they put on. I'm really close with a lot of the community leaders there. I kind of met them through scouting. My brother and my father and my grandfather were all Eagle Scouts, or were all part of scouting. My grandfather and my brother are both Eagle Scouts. So scouting's kind of been in our family for a long time. I was part of a Girl Scout troop when I was very younger. So that was like kind of my first introduction to the scouting world and, that kind of aspect of life. I currently attend the University of Missouri in Columbia, go Tigers. And I am a fourth generation legacy student there. So my great grandfather, my grandfather, and my father all went there, as well as my grandmother. And they were all engineering students. And I was like, you know what? I want to be different. I want to pick a different school or a different major. And then I toured the school and I ended up loving it. And I looked at the major and I was going through high school and I was really good at science and math. And I really enjoyed, kind of branching healthcare with the engineering world, getting my hands dirty, but also doing community outreach. And that's kind of where I landed in engineering. I really enjoy it. I currently am exploring a minor in math and a minor in computer science. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in, like I said, Greensboro and Oak Ridge. And so I went to the Northwest Guilford High School and I graduated from there. And that's where I kind of find my home is back in Greensboro. I always try to go back as much as I can on all my breaks. And that's kind of me. And through scouting, I've done quite a bit so far. I'm really excited to talk about it. I am an Eagle Scout, like Bill mentioned, and I am also one of the NISA winners. I won the top scholarship from the NISA Alumni Association. I think last year, was the year, was 2023. Yeah. And I'm currently part of that. And then I also was the keynote speaker at the 2024 National Annual Conference or meeting, which was this year in May. So, and I've done I've been a senior patrol leader of my troop 219 out of Oak Ridge, North Carolina. And I'm now currently the assistant scoutmaster for them. And I've been able to do a lot of different stuff through them.
Wow. That's quite a bit for a young person. You're still in your early 20s. Is that, did I get that?
I turned 20 this year. Yeah.
Yeah. That's real early 20s. But what are you majoring in? You said 2 minors.
Biomedical engineering.
Yeah, that's what Odell wanted to do.
No. Way over my head. Way over my head.
He got a scholarship in basketball. His team won the national championship. So that's
wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we had no biomedical engineer degree participants on our team. Trust me.
Yeah. What's your degree in? I never asked you what you got.
I got my undergrad in business administration, and I have my master's in divinity, and I, graduated cum laude.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow, you're a Lottie.
Yeah, I'm a Lottie.
Oh, wow, Lottie over here. I got 2 Lotties probably.
He's Latin. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to point out to our audience, that the keynote speaker at the national meeting was unique. You were the first Eagle Scout and first female to ever speak as a keynote. And from what I understand, they didn't edit your speech. You took it just the way you wrote it.
It had so many drafts. There were so many drafts. My computer, I think, filled up its storage at one point. But it took a lot of practice. When they first kind of brought me in, I got a text from Mike Matzinger, my scoutmaster, and he goes, "You're going to get an email and you're going to say yes, and you're not going to fully understand what's happening yet, but you're going to do it." And I was like, "Sounds good."
Okay,
we're blind faith. I'm going to go. And so I got an email and a message from Michael Ramsey, who is let me make sure I get his title right, the Senior Vice President of Media Relations, Senior Vice President. And he does a lot of media relations, though, and does a lot of the stuff that he did a speech. Yes. And he was like,
America.
Yeah, Scouting America. And he reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, we want to invite you to be the keynote speaker. or a speaker at the national annual meeting. And prior to this, I had only heard about the national meeting in like distant conversation. I wasn't completely sure what it was. I know most corporations and big businesses have these, and I kind of understand what goes on, but I'd never been to one. And so he's like, I want you just to put together a 15 to 20-minute story about yourself and just kind of take us through how you came to be who you are, what scouting has made for you and what done for you. And I want you just to explain to people who you are. And I was like, okay, 15 to 20 minutes about myself. My favorite topic, everyone's favorite topic is themselves. So I was like, okay, I can do it. So I started several rough drafts. I wasn't really sure how I wanted it to flow. I wanted to highlight all of the cool things I've gotten to do. I've gotten to do quite a bit of different conferences and gone abroad even, and worked with so many great people. And originally I was writing it and I was like working with a bunch of different people. Once I got kind of like a flow that I wanted, I started saying it to people. I read it to my roommates a couple times. I read it to my parents to make sure that it sounded coherent enough to say in front of what I thought was going to be like 500, 800 people at the time. It wasn't told to me until about maybe a week before, that it was going to be more like 1,100 people.
Right.
And I was like, oh, just tack on an extra 100. Doesn't matter. They're all going to look the same at one point. So I practiced, and I wasn't really ready for the magnitude of it. I think I kind of like had this like false hope that it was going to be something small. And I was like, oh, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was. But I think that kind of prepared me better than I thought it was, because I showed up and I had this I had an equal amount of hope as I did nerves. So I think that was more calming than I thought it was going to be. And so I showed up and I had a dry run practice using the stage, using the podium. This was my first time using a teleprompter, and I didn't know exactly how that works. So that was fun to navigate. And I worked with a lot of great people on it, and I was able to write it all by myself. The only things that I think they edited was maybe like one sentence here and there. And that was just because of word choice, or they wanted it to say kind of a different thing. But I had kind of like free reign over it, which was really great.
That is great. But before we go any further, Mike, your Scoutmaster, Mike Massinger, would be very upset if we didn't give your website and a way for them to publicize your unit. So go ahead.
Yes. So I am from Troop 219. It is an all-girls troop out of Oak Ridge, North Carolina. And let me get the exact spiel here. It is we meet at Oak Ridge Presbyterian Church, and we meet Mondays at 7. And we meet for about an hour and a half. We do a range of different things. We go on outings once a month, and it's troop219.org or .com, I think. But that is where you find everything. And we're also on social media. We have so many social media platforms. I don't think I even know them all, but Instagram and Facebook are our main two. And we have a lot of different information about all the stuff we're doing. And let me think what else. We also have nearly 50 members, which is really great because recruiting has been a big thing on our mind since we started the troop. I mean, we started with 5 people and we've grown to almost 50 over the couple of years that we've been a troop, which has been really great to see us flourish.
Yeah, that's great. So is it www.troop219?
Yes.
.com?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a good URL. That's
yes,
cool.
Short and to the point.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, since we talked about your Scoutmaster, Mike Matsinger, we need a story about him. Yes.
So one of the things that
Mike, listen.
This is about him, so he's gonna love this. So we had one of my first ever, I guess, outings was when we learned that he likes bacon. Mike Matsinger really loves bacon. He has bacon socks. We try to make him bacon as much as we can, but we went to summer camp and we were there with our brother troop, and we decided to spell his name in bacon.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, which is a lot of letters.
Yes.
And
a lot of bacon.
Thinking about it, his cholesterol and his heart probably couldn't take it if he ate it all, but that was one of the funniest things that were done. There's a joke running around where there are socks with his face on it. So there are socks that you can buy that have just his face on it.
Really?
You can wear. Yep. I think they're $10 and you can buy them. They exist. So there are people running around with Mike Matsinger's face on their socks.
I know what I'm getting my brothers for Christmas now.
Oh yeah. They're collectibles.
Great. Yeah. You have to email me where to find those, and then I think I'll help.
Don't worry.
Contribute. Does he get a royalty for this?
No, this was totally at someone. We just found a picture of them and someone made them into socks and now they're green, I think, and they have just his face all over. It's not like one big picture. There's several faces on it.
Wow, that's great. That's a great
Mhm.
story. Now, Odell, you want to say something?
Yeah, Selby. Question first again. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, you've traveled so many different places. I had the
Yes.
pleasure of going to Philmont Scout Ranch and I think it's Cimarron, New Mexico, and the whole
Mhm.
thing with the Tooth of Time. And
Mhm.
it's almost like that's holy ground. What's holy ground to you?
Yeah, I think honestly, to me, there's a lot of different places, like especially when I call a place home, it's a place where I have my people and I feel very comfortable and I feel very secure. I think that's one of the great things about scouting is that, going into it, I wasn't expecting to have a family out of it, but I think instead of it being a place, it's more of the people that are there. And I found that wherever my people are, that's my holy space or my space where I feel, connected to everything. And honestly, I do a lot of stuff outside and I really enjoy gardening and I really think that's my way to connect with any space I feel safe in. And I really like the idea of giving back to a community that has helped me or give back to the ground that's helped me. And so I find that when I need to find my peace or I need to be, grounded somewhere, that's just where I go back to my people.
Thank you. Now, question
Yeah.
for you. Did you realize, or when did you realize that you were carrying the weight of scouting somewhat on your
Hmm.
shoulders because scouting's had a rough couple of years. And
Hmm.
your story to me is a breakout story. I was on the board of directors of scouting, not the national board, of course, the
Hmm.
local board, when some of the challenges start surfacing. And
Yeah.
the whole idea of female Eagle Scouts and being in those rooms, some of those conversations, and in your speech, you talked about how you thought everyone would love you and love the idea, but it
Hmm.
was some hesitancy there. Can you elaborate or drill a little deeper into that? And how did you handle it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, when I first started scouting, there was, again, like I mentioned, five of us that started the troop because this was a brand new thing. Girls had never, there was no role models for us to look up to. I always struggled with that. I was like really nervous. I was like, well, can we do it? I mean, there's no women for me to really look up to in my role or being an Eagle Scout. And I kind of was like, okay, well, if there's no one there, I get to be that person. And that's how I
Wow.
really,
Wow. Can you say that again? Because that's gonna so powerful for so many people, young boys and young girls. What you
Mhm.
just said is so powerful.
I like to think that there is always different ways to do scouting. And I really enjoyed that it's kind of like DIY. You get to create your own path. If there's something you want to do, you can do it. There's so many options. And one of the options that I never saw was, a woman in the role that I had. And I was like, what, if someone has to fill it, I'm going to do it because someone has to do it. And I think that even if I'm not doing it the same way someone else can do it, at least I can show them that there is some way to do it. And I really liked that going into scouting. And I really developed that through scouting because I was like, I don't even know how I would do that, but I want to do it and I'm going to get there in the end.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Well,
Thank
one of the
you.
things too you said that really touched my heart, you said your grandfather, and obviously you could tell the love you have for your grandfather. You said if your grandfather, and I'm paraphrasing, so if I get it wrong,
Yeah.
just excuse me. You said if
Mhm.
your grandfather had one regret, that was he wished he would have got involved in female scouting earlier, or clean that up for me. Some
Yeah,
to a certain degree.
one of the things that my grandfather always told me was because always grown up being with my family. I always liked to be outdoors with them. And my grandfather, who went to Mizzou and did engineering, when I told him that I was going to be an engineer, it's a male dominated field. It's not necessarily, you don't always see the most amount of women in your classroom, which can be difficult at times. But he was always very supportive of anything I wanted to do. He's like, well, if I can do it, you can do it. And he always liked to think that I could do it better than him. And that's kind of how he had me approach scouting because he always told me, he's like, he wished girls were involved in scouting sooner. And that was one of the quotes I wanted to use in my speech because it's very powerful from a generational standpoint. Because a lot of the resistance you mentioned that I kind of touched on in my speech came from, people who really saw it as a male tradition. This was a boys thing and this is only things that they want the boys to have. And it was always difficult because it was like, I'm not trying to change anything that's happening. I just want to be able to do it too. And I think that's kind of how I really wanted to portray my grandfather through it because he really showed me that like not everyone's going to be hesitant towards me. There are people who are accepting. There's people who don't completely understand what we're doing, or people who aren't fully understanding the whole movement. And that's kind of where it stems from, I think.
Well, I just want you to know before we pass it on to Bill that line touched me. That
Thank
line
you.
really resonated with me, Bill.
Yeah, it's same thing here. When I saw the picture of your grandfather with you and that quote, it was like, yes, that's right. Do you know?
Hold on a minute, Bill. I'm sorry. Bill, how long have you been in scouting?
Oh, I had a lot more hair when I started. I can tell you that.
But what was your transformation from when Selby and others start coming? How did you feel? Because she mentioned that it was and I know you were all for it, but just how does it make you feel to see this amazing person a part of the Eagle Scout family?
Oh, it just warms my heart. And in fact, I was going to add to that. Selby, my wife, Dory, is a terrific woman, and I love her dearly. And she grew up, her father was a scoutmaster. He was an Eagle Scout in our council in 1941.
Oh, wow.
And her brother was an Eagle Scout in Richmond, Virginia, where they lived. And she would go on all the scouting events with him.
Wow.
And shoot guns and do everything like you were talking about in your speech. But she couldn't get any of the badges. She couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
I have a daughter that's a professional rock climber. She would have definitely scouting. And so, we look back, we looked at the missed opportunities to bring those people into our environment. Duty to God, duty to country, service to others, and then take care of yourself is not gender specific.
Wow.
No.
It's for every kid.
Y'all dropping all these nuggets on me, man. Y'all just dropping all these nuggets on me today.
And do you know the backstory how girls got into scouting?
I might, but you might want to tell me to make sure I know.
I was there. I was part of the decision. It wasn't my decision, but we had, I think it was in 2016, and I may have the year wrong, but I was asked to be on a culture team for the Boy Scouts. There were 13 of us, 6 volunteers from America and 7 professionals, including the chief scout executive and a couple other big mucks. And we were charged by Dr. Robert Gates and Rex Tillerson to look at changing the business culture of the Boy Scouts for the next 100 years without touching the Scout Oath and Law.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what a culture team was. To me, culture is Irish or Italian or something, And as I learned more about culture change and what it meant to our organization, we were asked to come up with things that would actually change our culture. And the first thing we came up with is we wanted girls in scouting. And boy, did that hit a nerve on some people.
Oh, yeah.
And and so we had about 43 meetings with the Girl Scouts, talking to them about possibly merging and figuring things that we could do. And none of those worked.
43?
I believe it was 43. Maybe it was 42, but it was a lot. And after the last one, at that point, Randall Stevenson, who was the head of AT&T, was our president. And he said, he's going to add girls. And they had already done a little test program to see if it was acceptable. But what we were finding is that people were bringing their daughters, like my wife, to events, and they were doing family scouting. And and they wanted their family involved. Grandma would come to things, grandpa would come to things. And so when we said we're going to do family scouting and bring girls in, obviously we got some resistance, which you would expect, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And but I give them credit; they stuck to the guns, and you were the beneficiary of that. One of the questions that came up: okay, if we have girls in scouting, we're going to change the requirements for Eagle Scout for girls. And when I heard that, I thought that was a foreign. I couldn't even believe that somebody was saying it, because there's 343 steps in becoming an Eagle, and we did not change one. I don't see any reason why you would need to. Yeah, it'd be crazy. So I'm thinking, why do we even need to do it? And but it's really remarkable that you were the first class. And how many girls were in your class that came from your troop? So out of I think it was about 1,000 that were in the first class of inaugural female Eagle Scouts, out of my troop, there was, including me, 4. So 4 out of the 5 that founded the troop went on to be in the first class. So how many people were in your patrol? When we first started, there was 5. We had one patrol of 5 people, and now we have 50, almost 50. So maybe 8. 8 patrols. Now the girls that became Eagles, were they in your patrol?
Yeah.
So out of 6, 5 became Eagles, or out of 5?
Out of 5, 4 became Eagles.
Wow. That's incredible. That's
Mm-hmm.
incredible. When I was getting my Eagle, we had a senior patrol leader. His name was Wally Malika. I still remember him. He lives in Boulder, Colorado, actually, and I'm going to try to see him when I go out there for NOAC. And I've reached out to him and talked to him, and he was first generation Polish. His parents spoke very little English. They didn't drive cars. He drove cars.
Mm-hmm.
He became old enough. He was older than us. He said, "Well, we're all going to become Eagles." And there were 6 of us or 7 of us in the patrol. 6 became Eagles, and we would jump in his Volkswagen Beetle and go get merit badge. Because then you had to go and meet the merit badge counselor and stuff like that. What's your favorite merit badge?
Oh, I have 2. Whenever I get asked this, I always tell like 2 different stories. So I'm going to say the 2 now. I'm going to do I really liked gardening. That was one of my first ones that I did because I had already started my garden, and I'm really into like peppers. I really like to grow various types of peppers. I really like spicy ones. So I have like ghost peppers, Carolina Reapers, Trinidad scorpions.
Oh, you got really hot ones. Holy cow!
Yeah, I like to mess with them.
You wear gloves?
Honestly. Yeah, I actually don't. I just wash my hands very thoroughly. I learned that touching your eyes is mistake number 1, but I was a very picky eater growing up, so I didn't like anything that grew outside. I probably wouldn't touch. My food groups were like meat, cheese, and bread. So in order in a try to get me to eat more food, my parents were like, well, go grow it and put work into it, and then you're going to want to eat it. And I was like, nah, that's not what I want to do. I don't really need to do that. Like, I'll just try new foods. And I actually ended up loving it, and I still garden today. And then my other favorite one is scuba diving, which is not something I knew was a merit badge either when I started. And that one I got through my troop, and we ended up going to Sea Base, which is one of the high adventure bases. And that's kind of one of my other passions is scuba diving.
Yeah, Odell and I are going to Grand Cayman this weekend.
Oh, wow.
And I cliff dived there, and I'll tell you, that is scary. I'm going to take Odell.
No, he's not. No. Selby, no, we're not doing cliff diving, nor cliff jumping, nor cliff anything. But it's okay, though. We'll do deep sea fishing.
Yeah.
Is there a badge for deep sea fishing?
Yeah, there is a fishing merit badge. Yeah. You got to clean it, though. You got to clean it. You just can't catch it. And so at cliff diving, you go down about 20 or 30 feet, and you swim along, kind of a sandy, and there's a ledge. And you swim out over the ledge, and it's nothing but black below you. I mean, as far as you can see. So I went out about 20 feet over this thing.
Wow.
And it's probably 1,000-foot drop. And I'm thinking, what is down there that could decide it? I was dinner. I got back on the shore. It scared me to death. But, it was funny. It's so peaceful down there when you're, you can float and just watch things go by.
Yeah, and it's a whole new world. I mean, there's just things that you wouldn't be able to see on land, and the deeper you get, the cooler the stuff is. And I really like the part of Sea Base where you do the coral restoration, because that's I really like the idea of giving back to the environment and protecting it and preserving it as best as we can. And so that was really interesting and not something I knew about before I went down there. And it was just something I became really interested in and did a lot of research on.
So how is the restoration? You take something down and lay it in the bottom of the
sort of. So they'll take pieces. So one of the big problems in the Keys is the bleaching of the coral, and that causes damage not only to the coral itself, but to all the organisms that live off the coral. It's a habitat down there, just like a forest would be for, land animals. And so they have a whole program down there where they will take coral and they'll regrow it, and then they'll start placing it places so that it grows back, and then eventually replaces the habitat. And it's a big program down there that they're starting to, really delve into. And I think that there's a project that's probably going to be where they can expand that.
Right. It's Sea Base. It's been about 10 minutes since we did a plug for the website. Mike wants to do that. So it's www.troop219.com.
Yep. Don't forget about the social medias either. There's a Facebook page and an Instagram. I'm sure there's a Twitter. I'm sure there's all of the stuff, or X now. All of that's on there with all the pictures that you could possibly imagine.
There you go. And your mascot is a dinosaur, correct?
Yeah, it's Fluffy the dinosaur.
How did that happen?
Fluffy came about when I was senior patrol leader. So the problem that we encountered over COVID was recruitment was low. It's very difficult to recruit people to go outside and spend time with people when a pandemic is going on, as one could infer. But we had trouble finding places where we could do some of our requirements. And so we went to Cherokee Scout Reservation, which is one of my home troop scouting reservations. And we threw our own camp out in our own summer camp. We were there for a week. We did merit badges. We did nighttime activities. We did rank requirements, and to keep morale up and to really, kind of be fun about it. We would do like theme days, or we would have, and I was like, we should have Fluffy, which was this dinosaur. It's an inflatable dinosaur who's currently has, I think there's a couple holes in him that he's been patched up. He's been around for a couple years now. He's getting old, and we might need to have a Fluffy part 2, but that was kind of one of the fun things. And like, we would have this game where whoever has Fluffy for the day can dress him however he wants. And you can take Fluffy out wherever you want. Fluffy can go to class. Fluffy can go to rank requirements. Fluffy can go outside. And so that was kind of like one of the fun games that we put on during summer camp and during our own summer camp.
Oh, that's terrific. As you were talking about summer camp, you were aquatic director in Switzerland?
Yeah, I was one of the aquatic staff in Switzerland at Camp Alpine, which is at Kondersdijk International Scout Center, which is this giant World Scout Center for scouting across the globe. And Camp Alpine rents space from them, and there are 3-week summer camp there, 2 weeks of camp and 1 week of staff training. It's a great experience that I would not have found through scouting. And it's unlike anything else that I could have done. It's a very unique experience to live in the Swiss Alps in a tent for 3 weeks and just kind of live among the mountains in Switzerland.
Wow. And then you were talking about how the Ukrainian scouts and the Russian scouts were good friends. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I had, I worked there for 2 summers. I worked there last summer and the summer before that. And the first summer I was there, I really like being provisional, troop guide provisional, where all of these people who aren't big enough, the troops aren't big enough, or they're sending one scout, can't rent their own space. So you kind of make a conglomerate of one troop, and it's people who may have not known each other before. They're from different areas. They come together and they form their own little troop for a week. And I really liked that because it was, a big teamwork effort. And I really liked the idea of putting people together and, exposing people to different backgrounds or different work ethic or all of these different things that you can get out of being in a provisional troop. And part of them was a Ukrainian scout and a Russian scout. And they ended up, I think, sharing a tent for the last part of the week, and they were best friends. You wouldn't have known that they're from different regions. You wouldn't have known that they were from different countries even. They looked like they'd known each other for a while. And then the following summer, which was last summer, we fundraised for about 33 Ukrainian scouts who had been displaced to Poland to come to camp. We got all of their gear, all of their food, all of their traveling situated. We paid for all of the stuff for camp. My troop, I think, fundraised for almost 14 scouts, and then the rest was fundraised, from various places. And we worked together, and I was their troop guide for the week, and I took them around, made sure they had everything, and I worked very closely with them and tried to learn Ukrainian. It's a very difficult language, but they were trying to learn English as well, which was very fun. So we were kind of like sharing these little bits and pieces of each other's cultures and customs, and I was able to work with them on different things and learn about everything that they do, which was really cool.
Oh, that's great. That's great. In the food, I bet you the food was so much different.
Yes. Europe.
I'm hungry. I haven't had dinner yet, so the food is important to me right now.
Europe is known for smaller portions, which is definitely true. That was one of the different things that I noticed. And then the other thing is so a lot of all the campers and all the scouts, they make their own food while they're there. So you're given rations and you're given basically an ingredient list and the instructions to make whatever's for dinner. My favorite was Alpine mac, which was mac and cheese with extra cheese, which is the best way to have mac and cheese, I personally think, but I just call that mac and cheese. But so they make all their own food, but Swiss chocolate and Swiss coffee is one thing that got me through work, like one of the longer days. And the weather there is very unpredictable. So if it says it's not going to rain, it's probably going to downpour. And if it says it's going to downpour, it's going to be perfect weather. So you have to work with what you got. And it was a very adaptable experience. I learned a lot of problem solving on the spot.
Yeah, but being in scouting, I grew up. My scouting was in Cleveland, Ohio, so we did a lot of winter camping in snow and stuff,
Yes.
and trucking. Carrying all your stuff back into the woods and setting your tent up, and then wake up in the morning with a foot of snow. But scouting is, I found some old pictures, and when we went to Camp Beaumont, when I was probably 12 years old. And we had those old wall tents. Remember the ones that that weighed a ton, and we'd put them up. You had to stand up and hold over your head the bar, and then people would put the sidings. And we had a couple kids that were a little too short, so we would pick them up and hold them. And it was fun stuff. It was great.
Yeah.
Time. Yeah.
That's definitely what I've learned is waking up early to set up camp or waking up early to take down camp is better than waiting till it's dark to cook your dinner.
Yes.
Experience thing. You think you know that before you go in, and then you realize that you don't know that, and then you end up not ever doing it again.
Yep. Cooking at night is not any fun.
No.
Where do you see the future of scouting?
I think, when I was doing my keynote, I worked with a lot of great people and a lot of people that are high in scouting. I worked with Roger Crone, who is the CEO and president. I worked very closely with him for that day. And I think he says a lot of great things when he was giving his speech. And when he announced the name change, it was really important to highlight that none of the values of scouting changed, and that none of, the Scout Oath and the Scout Law and the Outdoor Code haven't changed for the 114 years that scouting's been around. And the name has changed, but nothing remotely with our values or our morals has really changed. And so I think that's one of the important things to highlight, because, when I went through scouting, I completed all the same requirements as everybody else. I did all of the same merit badge requirements that I needed to do. I did all of the service events, and I did all of the leadership opportunities and public speaking that I could. And I found that if I took advantage of those, I was really prepared for the next step. And I think that's really important that we reach everybody and everyone has an opportunity to do that, because I've worked a lot of different places through scouting and met a lot of people from different backgrounds. And I was exposed to a lot of different, religions or cultural beliefs or, all of these different things that really exposed me to other things that I wasn't really sure about. And it was great learning opportunities that I wasn't sure I could get anywhere else. And I've been able to really grow as a person. And I think being able to reach all the eligible youth that we can by really, explaining that the new name is just about inclusivity and making sure that everyone can have the impact that they want. They can do all of these things and that's open to everyone. And I think that's really where scouting is moving toward. And I think the name change is just emphasizing that we want everyone to be part of this great program and be able to experience all of the stuff that they want to do.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And I know you have to get off here in a little bit, because where are you going?
So my cousin is a Cub Scout, and I'm currently living with my uncle and my cousin and my aunt for my internship in Bethesda, Maryland. And so they invited me to come to their Cub Scout meeting and to meet some of the Cub Scouts that are part of them. And they have a couple girls in their den, den. And so they want me to come and just talk to everyone, and they want to show all the cool things that I have on my uniform and all of the shiny stuff that I get. So I'm going to hang out with them because they make me feel really young again. And I like that. So I'm going to go hang out with them at 6:30.
There you go. Odell?
Well, Selby, again, just congratulations and everything. One last question. As a leader, and obviously everyone sees the leadership potential in you. Because of that, they asked you to speak. As a leader, I found all these years that sometimes I have internal conflicts that I have to deal with. You came through the pandemic, you stated that, but also you came through a readjustment in Scouts, from the bankruptcy to the reorganizing to coming out of the bankruptcy. And as a leader, you carry the battle flag. So from time to time, people are going to ask you, well, what about this about scouting? What about that? How do you find the fortitude to stand up, to know that what people may or may not be saying is somewhat true, but at the same time, you can accept that truth, but also talk more about the future, where we go from here? So how do you do that at such a young age?
Yeah, I often, I always get asked, what it feels like. I always get referred to as the ambassador of scouting, or one of scouting's ambassadors. And it feels like a very heavy name to be put on one person because I feel like all of the youth are ambassadors. I mean, people like to say we are the future because we're going to be what's coming in the next couple of years. And so when I have to face difficult questions or conversations, I don't think it's necessary to really focus on what we've done, but more of how we move from it and how we grow from it, what we learn, how we, people make mistakes and I make mistakes all the time. And I always like to think back, well, what could I have done differently? What is there that I need to do to fix this or prevent it in the future? And I think that's one of the great things that scouting offers is a way to, if something happens, you have to pivot and you have to figure out how to fix it from there. I've gone on several camping trips where I forgot equipment to cook or I forgot a pillow. And, there's those things, they sit with you. You're like, I don't ever want to do that again because that was really hard to make it through that. And you really want to move on from that. So I think it's really important that you work together because teamwork is one of the biggest things that I learned from scouting, that there's not one person who can do the job. There's going to be multiple people who support you. You're going to have multiple people who give you advice or multiple people who show you what it means to be a leader. And you always want to be a role model and you want to, lead by example. That was one of the things that Mike Matzinger really kind of preached to us is what it means to be a servant leader in your community is you want to lead by example. You're not there to just tell people what to do, but you're there to show them how to do it. And if they need help, you're going to help them along the way. And I think when I get asked again, those hard questions, that's how I want to be. I want to lead by example about how we can move from it and grow from it and really move towards this new inclusivity that we're really focusing on.
You've been blessed because Mike is a very special person.
He is.
I would hope that all the leaders were as special as Mike is. Bill?
Yeah, I agree. He is a special person. I know he hates hearing that. But he's the bacon man, so we'll go with
He is the bacon man.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about the bacon man, go to www.troop219.com and you'll see the bacon man. There's some photos. He's out in Fremont right now.
He is.
Commissioners. I talked to him a couple hours ago. And I'm going to give you the last word before we close out here.
Yeah, I think the last thing I always like to talk about whenever I'm doing a interview or doing something where I'm trying to explain scouting to people is that there's no one way to do it. There's always 10,000 other ways I didn't think of doing it before, and that there's different things I would want to do now and I'm going to do. And so one of the things is recruitment is always very difficult because sometimes there's no girl troops for young girls to join from Cub Scouts, or sometimes there's, not enough people who are willing to make it work. And so I think being able to really emphasize that scouting is about having fun and it's about doing things that you can't really get through the classroom necessarily, or you can't do on your own and you need help doing it, or there's just something you genuinely want to learn more about. That's what scouting's for. And it's just a way to do something. And it's a good outlet for, developing your faith or developing leadership skills or doing service and giving back to your community. So I think that anything you want to get out of it, you just got to really put the work in. And that's what I really, truly love about scouting.
Well said. We'll close on that note, Odell.
All right.
Selby, thank you for being on the show. And if there's anything that Odell and I could do for you, let us know.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to both of you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And here's the 20-minute speech from Selby Chipman, the first female to ever speak at the National Boy Scouts of America meeting.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Eagle Scout Selby Chipman.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well today. It's been a long day, I know, for me, so I'm sure most of you are also feeling the tired, and that Fudgy Wudgy video made me very hungry. So I'm looking forward to this. But before I begin, there's a thing I like to do every time I'm with a bunch of really cool people, and I like to take a selfie. So I'm really showing my age here. So I'm going to take a selfie, and I want everyone to smile really, really big so we can see you. All right, ready? All right, let's see. Oh, it looks like someone in the back closed their eyes. Gotta go again. All right, one more time. Awesome. All right, thank you, everyone. I'm really honored to be here today. I'm thrilled to be in a room with so many great people. So this is gonna be really fun, and I'm really excited to get started. So let's go ahead. Again, my name is Selby Chipman, and it took a while for Boy Scouts to really catch up with my scouting aspirations. So in kindergarten, I began my scouting journey with a Daisy Girl Scout troop. Started by a crafty mom, my new troop promised all the Well, the fun and the friendship. And like my mother, I advanced to Brownies and soon bridged to Girl Scouts by middle school. My notable achievements included cookie selling, tasting, obviously. You gotta make sure you know your products inside and out, very key. I also got some really mad skills, glitter gluing, butterfly gardening, pottery painting, and first aid bandaging. And even though I had a great time, I always felt like I was missing out on these scouting high adventures. So, in my spare time, you'd find me outside exploring, dirty fingernails and all, perched in a tree somewhere, scanning the horizon for those imagined adventures. And while I still have a weakness for Thin Mint cookies, so good, I always gravitated toward my younger brother Stuart's Cub Scout adventures. When my father was Cub Master for my brother's pack, I couldn't wait for family outings. Real tent camping, fire building, s'mores making, muddy trail hiking, Pinewood derby racing, rocket launching, bicycle trail riding, creepy crawling investigating, ocean swimming, and the ultimate fun time, giant blob jumping. The one where people jump and then you go really big? Yeah, that's fun. But instead of glitter and paint, I came home with pockets full of adventures, rocks, shells, pine cones, acorns, the various things you find on long walks, and a longing to be a part of the Boy Scouts like my grandfather, father, and brother. My early memories of my grandfather Sid, who had earned his Eagle Scout in 1954 at the ripe age of 14, involve his many sayings, like this one he borrows from G.K. Chesterton, an inconvenience is an adventure wrongly conceived. Let me explain. My grandfather's most memorable and funny, instructive scouting adventures involved being prepared in downpours, droughts, and cold snaps, often with a canoe that he managed to carry uphill, likely barefoot in the snow. And for him, and I like to think all the Chipmans in my family, nothing is more exciting than the satisfaction of being prepared for those extra adventures. Those adventures cleverly disguised as inconveniences, the ones that come out of nowhere, when you're halfway up the mountain and wishing you weren't there anymore. My grandfather often talks about how his first Sea Scout ship disappointed him. Making up for a lack of resources, Scouts pretended to go to sea using an outline of a ship on the church floor. Now, needless to say, my grandfather went to the next town over, where real scouting and adventuring took place on real trails and rivers. Perhaps, like the genetic code I study in college today, there's scouting DNA buried deep within my family and many others in this room that draw us in to seek scouting's real and often unexpected life lessons. After joining a Sea Scout ship in 2018, so I could gather stories on the open seas to tell the next generation of Chipmans, I learned that Boy Scouts of America would soon allow all-girl troops. While getting my hiking boots broken in, I approached my brother's Scoutmaster to see if he would be willing to form a new troop. Fortunately, Scoutmaster Mike Matzinger gave us his full support. Our 5 founding members chose Troop 219 to honor February 2019, when girls could first form troops. We were so excited to have some of the same scouting experiences as our brothers, fathers, and even grandfathers, including the opportunity to earn the rank of Eagle Scout. Calling ourselves the Groundbreaker Patrol, we forged ahead with excitement, and even as we faced inconveniences that became adventures, like rain and cold, on nearly every one of our first outings. We ran in the rain, we camped in the rain, we backpacked, as the theme keeps going, it's gonna be in the rain, and we determined that we wanted to blaze a new path forward for ourselves, for other girls, and for scouting. With a long list of what we hoped to accomplish, we planned a dizzying array of outings, merit badges, and service projects. And I'm sure our seasoned Scoutmaster was wondering if we could do half as much as we hoped. But as my grandfather wisely says, we didn't do this because it is easy, but because we thought it would be easy. I'll elaborate a little. Our Groundbreaker Patrol believed the sky was the limit, and we thought it'd be easy to get moving. Everyone would be so excited to support us. I mean, after all, my brother's troop celebrated us in ceremony, included us in a slideshow about important women in history, but in reality, we caused a bit of a stir, especially among people firmly rooted in Scouting's all-male tradition. I think Brad Tilden said it best when he was talking, change can be hard, especially changing course of a 100-year-old Scouting tradition that's been heading in a direction for so long. While some girls who joined Scouts in those early days may have second-guessed themselves or caved into the naysayers, our troop's founders believed history has taught us all valuable lessons. When you are among the first, there are challenges for sure, but you also have the opportunity to heed the call. We groundbreakers decided to dig in and lead by example. We would undertake every requirement toward our journey to Eagle, knowing we were leading the way as trailblazers. In those early days, like thousands of other female Scouts across the nation, we believed every campfire, every hike, every meal, every fitness test, every knot that we tied, every town meeting we attended, and every rank requirement, everything required our best effort. We were proving our worth as Scouts to ourselves. But we were also trying to change hearts and minds about the females in Scouting, to inspire and welcome others to join our sisterhood, to show them what's possible, by helping to lay the groundwork for the future of Scouting that stands before us today. As my grandfather believes, don't weigh your life's pockets down with regrets. Make room for what matters. As you can imagine, I have made room for all of the Scouting adventures that have come my way, including standing before you today, leaving no room for regrets, and hopefully with more adventures to come. When the world shut down during COVID, our troop came alive. While others became isolated, our world opened up. Our sisterhood of 5 quickly expanded to 12, and then to 20, and then to more than 30 while I was their senior patrol leader. Today, I serve as the assistant scoutmaster to nearly 50. Back then, when we met virtually on Zoom, I learned public speaking there, so please go easy on me today. My skills are not quite there yet. We photographed nature at the park, we scaled fish in our kitchen sink, we tent camped at our local parks or in our backyards, we hiked 6 feet apart. We even created our own summer camp experience at our home camp at Cherokee Scout Reservation, complete with our inflatable dinosaur mascot, Fluffy, and you'll see up on the slide, there he is, and I have him with here for emotional support today. We went paddleboarding at sunrise, we did fingerprinting at lunchtime, we tried axe throwing in the afternoon, we completed chemistry experiments at picnic tables, told campfire stories while eating Dutch oven cobbler. By the way, if you're eating Dutch oven cobbler, chocolate cherry, #1. We found ourselves and we found our people. Especially drawn to water sports, I quickly moved from swimming merit badge to life-saving to BSA lifeguard, and then got suited up for brisk dives at our local quarry to get scuba certified. At Cherokee, I assisted with waterfront activities and water sport merit badges for all campers, including a growing number of all-girl troops. By day, I helped reluctant swimmers gain confidence, and by night, I acted in campfire skits, calmed fears of homesick campers, and called out scouts in the Order of the Arrow ceremony. At Florida Sea Base, I served as crew advisor for our troop of newly minted scuba divers, and on the water early in the morning, the sun warmed us as we dove into the pristine blue, but I'll admit very choppy water. And to lighten the mood and ease these girls into their first dives, I did very poorly performed backflips off the boat that left a really bad red mark on my back. Together with tanks and flippers, we swam alongside colorful fish, nurse sharks, and even moray eels, weaving in and out of the coral. As we grouped Troop 219's sisterhood in the shadow of the pandemic, we purposely sought out girls from outside of our circle, from public school, private school, charter school, and even homeschool, with all kinds of beliefs from all backgrounds, from elementary school to high school. We made everyone feel welcome, showed them the ropes, including all of those knots you have to tie, and we created a safe place to try new things, to meet new people, different from ourselves, and to embrace all those adventures cleverly disguised as inconveniences. We learned the importance of tent stakes and dry matches and the very distinct difference between water resistant and waterproof. It's a very fine balance you have to walk with those. And we showed up with wheelbarrows and hammers, saws and drills and masks even during the pandemic to construct eagle projects like my own, which is a nature viewing station on the new section of Mountains to Sea Trail located in Oak Ridge, North Carolina, that required hauling materials like concrete and lumber and tools a quarter of a mile across. Now again, we're going to keep with the same theme of wet things, rain-soaked off-trail terrain, where we navigated our fair share of poison ivy. Within 19 months, I had completed all of the requirements to be part of the inaugural class of female Eagle Scouts. And I did all that with some of my great friends. 3 others from my troop also were part of that class. Our troop introduced scouts to caving, whitewater rafting, paddleboarding, and backpacking Moore Mountain, and what we came to call Matzinger Miles, which is where 5 miles becomes 11 miles, and somehow it gets to 16, and you're like, where am I? This pushed us to be and do our personal best. We met with merit badge counselors who introduced us to life skills and hobbies and careers like engineering and public health that have inspired my studies and career path today. But perhaps most importantly, we have become a troop fully engaged with our community's needs and a sense of higher purpose that will carry us throughout our lives. As the first of many female Eagle Scouts to come, many may think about us as being brave, but a scout is many things, especially in my troop where we strive to always be helpful and kind. While we have our personal scouting goals in our hearts, we as a troop want to be a troop of servant leaders. Our Scoutmaster leads by example. He shows us what it means to meet people, what it means to meet people where they are, to empower our troop to lead through service, to do a good turn daily. Most of you have heard this phrase before. To us, it means to honor those who have died serving our country with our troop's honor bell, lay wreaths at the nearly forgotten graveyards of Revolutionary War soldiers, retire the American flag with dignity and respect, serve as honor guards that send off veteran honor flights to our nation's capital, clean up trash on our highways with our sponsoring group, the Northwest Women's Club, collect food and stock pantries for the hungry, be the first troop to serve as waterfall keepers, or to commit to any other need that our community has for the long haul. In our troop of nearly 50 scouts, our pockets and lives are filled with what matters most. And while I know some troops may struggle to get scouts to join them, with my troop, community members, families, and potential scouts understand what we offer can be life-changing. Scouting imparts what modern life often leaves behind. This is life and leadership skills, outdoor adventures away from digital devices, and opportunities you just can't get anywhere else. I had the opportunity to work at Camp Alpine at the Kandersteg International Scout Center in Switzerland for 2 summers, and it has been a highlight of my scouting career. Having never traveled solo, 2 years ago, I boarded my first flight to Geneva, Switzerland, with 20 hours worth of delays due to, again, weather. Excellent. That required me to navigate a number of trains, planes, and automobiles. I felt a bit like Harry Potter trying to find platform 9 3/4. It was a lot to finally get to my breathtaking destination in the Swiss Alps. As the first American female Eagle Scout to work at Camp Alpine, I met scouts from every corner of the world, like Abu Dhabi, Spain, Ireland, Russia, and the Ukraine. In other parts of the world, all young people have been included in scouting for a long time. and they have the openness to all people, experiences, and customs which truly inspires me today. As the provisional troop guide, I witnessed scouts from the countries at war, like Russia and Ukraine, tent side by side and enjoying each other's company. Last summer, when I served as troop guide for a contingent of Ukrainian scouts displaced to Poland, I learned the true power of scouting: to connect people across cultures and conflict. Uprooted from their war-torn country, the Ukrainian scouts have a lot to teach us about the power of scouting. In spite of the dangers and uncertainties they face, their fearless pursuit of new experiences, openness to adventures, and understanding of what matters most reminds us all that an inclusive scouting organization can truly transform lives. As I look forward to what's next, I believe scouting has given me, and I'm sure countless others in this room, the skills and confidence to embrace new experiences and live a life of purpose. Following in the footsteps of my great-grandfather, grandfather, and father, I am a fourth-generation engineering student at the University of Missouri, where I walk the same... Yes, thank you. Clapping is a good sign. I like that. I like where that's going. At the University of Missouri, where I walk the same halls and sit in the same classrooms as they did generations ago. As with scouting, I will be the first female in my family to become a biomedical engineer, but yet it feels quite right, just like earning my Eagle Scout rank. This summer, I look forward to interning with the National Institutes of Health, where genetic research on rare pediatric diseases reflects my desire to improve the lives of young people. When my grandfather was asked about girls in scouting, I think he said it best: "My only regret is that we didn't welcome girls to join scouting sooner." As our movement advances, Scouting America invites all of us to embrace what matters most. Scouting's future includes all of us in this room today and many more in the world. So we have an incredible opportunity to help lead the way, just as we always have. I, for one, plan to be the boots on the ground, mentoring young people along their scouting journey and helping them discover their passions, so they too are empowered to be the change they want to see in the world. Thank you, everyone.
Find Bill and Odell online at thecommonground.show. This podcast is a production of BG Ad Group. All rights reserved.
This podcast is brought to you by Yes Weekly, the Triad's largest circulated and best read weekly magazine. You can also find us online at yesweekly.com and on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Yes Weekly, your trusted news leader for local arts, entertainment, music, food, and more for nearly 18 years.
Whether you're a big, medium, or small business, managing and growing the bottom line is important. Focus CFO brings the experience and financial acumen of a Fortune 100 Chief Financial Officer to your company at a fraction of the cost. P&L help, internal reporting processes, or any business transitions or events. Focus CFO will help you and your team have a CFO in your company's back pocket. Focus CFO. Learn more at focuscfo.com.